I enjoy words and the history of words, not because it tells us what the words mean today, but it tells us how the meaning today came from a word maybe used hundreds of years ago that meant something completely different, and how the word evolved. Because I think it tells us about history, it tells us about the way we think. And there's some words that I want to talk about today that have to do with this sense of hospitality that we see from Abram and Sarah, and we see from Martha and Mary today. And it's the word hospitality and where it comes from. Oddly enough, the words guest and host, which we think of as entirely opposite words. You know, if you're having a party, one person's the host and the other people are the guests. But etymologically, they're the exact same word, guest and host. They come from the same root word. They've traveled down in different directions, but it's the same root word. That somehow this idea of the person who's hosting and the person who's the guest comes from the same word. And the word is stranger, that someone who's different. And the idea, apparently, down through history, was the relationship between strangers, that you don't know each other. And one is the one whose house you're visiting, and the one is the one who's visiting the house. Both strangers to each other, but we have this word host and guest, and now they, as I said, they're very distinct meanings, but originally the word was stranger. And we know that because a lot of weird words come from this. When you talk about a hospital, you talk about a place where you care for the stranger. When you have a hotel, same root, it's where strangers come to stay and are cared for. A hostel, a little less care, but the same idea. And then we have hospice, where you care. Now we say hospice means caring for someone who's dying. And of course the word hospitality. But if the idea of stranger meant someone who was dangerous, then it would be a host of men over there, the army that's going to attack us. That they're hostile, they're strange and dangerous, and you keep people as hostage. I mean, they're all from the same root word. It's a very strange thing. And in reflecting on it, for me, it comes out of this idea of this relationship between strangers, relationship between people who are different. And in the ancient world of Abram and Sarah, that what you did for the stranger was you cared for them, because they didn't have hostels and hotels and hospitals. They didn't have places where you just checked in, swiped your card, and had a nice evening. You're walking across the desert, you're walking across strange lands, and the stranger is there to greet you. And if you seem peaceful, he will care for you. And this is what Abram did. The rule of the desert was you cared for the stranger. You invited and welcomed someone in, because there was no other way people would survive in the desert. You had to take them in. And, I'm sure there were rules like after 3 days, you keep moving because we got things to do. But the idea of stranger is guest and host. They're both the same. It's the relationship. Words are interesting that way. When we talk about the Trinity, we talk about the Father and the Son, and the relationship between the Father and the Son is where the procession of the Holy Spirit comes from. That the idea of relationship is at the root of our belief and understanding of God. And this idea of how we treat strangers is at the root of our ethics as Christians and as Jews, the way we are supposed to care for one another. In the Old Testament, care for the widow, the orphan, the poor. those who have no one to care for them. It's now your responsibility to care for other people. We provide hospitality here at St. Andre Bessette. We're trying to care for people who have very few other options of people caring for them. That's what we're called to do. It seems a bit interesting that this conflict between Mary and Martha, like, Martha says, Jesus, I'm doing all the work, get Mary to help me. And Jesus' response is, you're anxious and worried about many things. There's need of only one. Mary has chosen the better part and will not be taken from her. There is need of only one thing. What's the one thing? Was it the food? No, because Mary chose the better part. Was it the hospitality? They're going to get pretty hungry if Martha's not making dinner. The one thing, I think, was the relationship of the hospitable nature between the guest and the host. That's what was supposed to be there. And Martha somehow breaking that hospitality by complaining about her sister, for one. The way that the strangers were treated by Abram and Sarah was right away, get some water, get some bread, cook some food. And Abraham sat and talked in the tent with the strangers, and Sarah was preparing the meal, but together that was the hospitality. What we do here at St. Andre Bessette, I hope, is we're little Marthas. We're working hard, trying to get the sandwiches and the coffee and the chocolate and the clothes and the food pantry and get all those things out to people. But we have to remember the other half of that, which is the Mary part. That the relationship is really important too. The way we interact with our guests says a lot. And their guests were host. But as you know, it's the same word. We're strangers who are trying to build a relationship and to be hospitable one to the other. As a country, we're called to be hospitable. We pride ourselves in being places where folks are welcomed. I'm not sure we're doing a great job right now. But as we reflect on what does it mean to be welcoming, to be hospitable, to be a safe place for people in a strange world, traveling as the men were through the desert, it's not just something we do because we're nice. It's our responsibility to care for the poor, the widow, the orphan, the stranger, the immigrant, the illegal. It's our responsibility as Christians.